The husband brought his pregnant mistress to his boss's anniversary party. But suddenly, he saw his wife walking down the grand staircase, holding hands with him. Speechless, he took a step forward. But what happened in the next second left him completely stunned. Hello, you are watching the Janestories channel. Before we begin, please let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoy listening to this life story. Alexander Vance always considered himself the master of his own destiny. At 42, he was the head of sales at a major IT company, Tech Empire. His boss, CEO Richard S. Crawford, was a living legend. A self-made billionaire who spent his nights in the dot-com era of the 90s writing code on an old Pentium, and now owned an entire empire with headquarters in Manhattan. He had villas in the Hamptons and Monaco, a 300-foot yacht docked in Monte Carlo, and a private jet that usually sat in Geneva. Crawford ruled with an iron fist, demanding but fair, and those who could deliver results could count on his favour. Crawford's 60th birthday was supposed to be the main social event of the year. Not just a party, but a real ball. A historic 19th-century mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, a massive ballroom with crystal chandeliers weighing tons, a live symphony orchestra, French chefs, and fireworks ordered from the same company that did the Super Bowl halftime show. The guest list easily read like the top of the Forbes 400, including a few cabinet members, a couple of new generation tech billionaires, and even a European prince who came as a friend. Alex had long been used to the world revolving around his rules. His wife, Anne, had been the flawless decoration for this life for many years. Beautiful, poised, with delicate features and a soft voice. She was an art history graduate from Columbia University, who once dreamed of working in a museum or gallery. But for the last 7 or 8 years, she had almost entirely devoted herself to their home, raising their 10-year-old son, Max, and maintaining the perfect facade her husband needed for his rapid career climb. They met back in college. He was a pushy, self-confident economics student. She was a dreamy girl with long chestnut hair who could talk for hours about the Renaissance and Impressionism. Their wedding was lavish, almost theatrical. A rooftop banquet hall at one of the first trendy restaurants in Tribeca. White roses, live music, hundreds of guests. Everyone envied them back then, but time and success took their toll. Passion was gradually replaced by exhaustion, conversations by silence, and shared plans by his endless meetings and business trips. Anne increasingly found herself alone in their massive Park Avenue penthouse with panoramic views of the city. She started complaining, softly at first, then more persistently. "You've changed, Alex," she would say sometimes in the evening, standing by the huge living room window, looking at the city lights far below. Her voice was quiet, almost without reproach, but carrying a deep, lingering sorrow. "Money ate your soul. You used to at least pretend to care about how I feel." He usually brushed it off, unwilling to dive into that conversation. "Money is freedom, Anne. Without it, we'd still be renting a cramped one-bedroom in Queens, counting pennies until payday. You didn't want that yourself." She would stay silent, and he would leave for another meeting at a bar with partners or head to the airport. But true freedom, real life, as he believed, had long since found a home elsewhere, in another woman. Morgan burst into his world 2 years ago like a bright flash in the night sky. Young, bold, with long, fiery red hair she liked to casually throw into a high ponytail, and ambitions that almost perfectly mirrored his own. She joined the department as an assistant, but very quickly became much more than just an employee. Their romance ignited at a corporate retreat in Cabo. 2 sleepless nights, champagne on a hotel balcony overlooking the ocean, confessions mixed with laughter and recklessness. Since then, things moved fast. Now, Morgan was 6 months pregnant. The baby, a boy, according to the latest ultrasound, was his. Alex repeated this to himself every day like a mantra. He saw in this child not only the continuation of his lineage, but also a ticket to an entirely new, more honest life, or so he thought. "This is our chance to start over," he whispered to Morgan, kissing her neck, breathing in the scent of her perfume and skin. "A divorce, a new apartment in a great neighborhood. I'll even talk to Crawford about getting equity in the project. We'll live the way we always dreamed." He promised a divorce, a new condo, even a share in the business. Morgan believed him, or pretended to. She loved the luxury, the designer dresses he bought her, the trips to Europe disguised as business trips. "You are my king," she would purr, and Alex felt invincible. That evening, getting ready for the anniversary, Alex stood in front of the mirror in his study. His tuxedo fit perfectly. His gold cufflinks gleamed. Morgan waited in the living room in a tight red dress that accentuated her round belly. "Are you sure?" she asked, nervously playing with her bracelet. "What if your wife is there?" Alex laughed. "Anne? She hates these gatherings. She's sitting at home with a book or with Max. Besides, I told her I was going alone. This is my chance to show Crawford that I'm not just a subordinate. I'm his successor." He turned Morgan toward him and looked into her eyes. "This is my chance, baby. Crawford has hinted multiple times that he's looking for a successor to step up. If I show up today with you, pregnant, beautiful, confident, it won't just be a social appearance. It will be a show of power. He'll see that I'm not afraid, that I play in the big leagues, that I deserve more than just being a department head." Morgan stayed silent, looking at him. A shadow of doubt flickered in her eyes, but she quickly hid it behind a smile. Alex kissed her on the temple. "Everything will be perfect," he said firmly. "Trust me." Crawford's mansion shined like a fairy tale palace. Guests arrived in limousines, politicians, celebrities, businessmen. The orchestra played waltzes. Champagne flowed like water. Alex walked in, holding Morgan by the arm, and immediately felt the stares. Whispers. "Who is that beauty? Vance has a new girl and she's pregnant?" He smiled, nodding to acquaintances. Smugness overwhelmed him. He was the center of attention. He walked up to Crawford, who was standing by the fireplace with a glass in hand. "Richard, congratulations," Alex said, shaking his hand firmly. "Allow me to introduce Morgan, a close friend of mine." Crawford raised an eyebrow but smiled. "Glad to see you, Alex. You always know how to surprise." Morgan blushed charmingly, and Alex thought, "It's working. He sees me as an equal." The evening picked up the pace. Alex danced with Morgan under camera flashes, told jokes to colleagues, flirted with partners' wives. "See, honey," he whispered to Morgan. "This is our life. Soon everything will be official." She nodded, but the shadow of doubt still flickered in her eyes. And somewhere deep in Alex's soul, a memory of Anne stirred. Their first meeting in a coffee shop, her laugh, the way she stroked his hair after a hard day. But he chased the thought away. The past was behind him. Suddenly, a sharp, triumphant fanfare chord rang out. The orchestra cut the melody mid-note. The MC, a tall man in a flawless tailcoat with a voice used to big arenas, raised his hands, calling for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, your attention, please. The special guest of the evening is now descending the grand staircase." 300 heads turned simultaneously. The spotlight softly glided upward, illuminating the wide marble staircase decorated with garlands of fresh white orchids and heavy crystal chandeliers that shimmered like frozen waterfalls. Alex looked up too, lazily, with a slight smile of superiority, expecting to see another celebrity or high-ranking senator, and froze. A woman was slowly descending the steps with regal grace. Her silver dress flowed over her like liquid metal, catching and reflecting the light of thousands of bulbs. A deep, backless cut, ultra-fine fabric hugging her figure, a long train carefully carried by two young men in uniform. On her neck was a diamond necklace with a center stone the size of a large grape. Her hair was pulled up into an elegant, high updo, with a few loose curls falling against her neck. Her makeup was a flawless, smoky eye that highlighted her incredibly bright green eyes. Her lips were a warm, pearlescent nude. It was Anne, his Anne. But not the Anne he was used to seeing in the mornings in an oversized t-shirt with messy hair, a cup of coffee in her hands, and tired eyes. This was a different woman, a queen. Cinderella who had finally put on the dress tailored for her by destiny itself. Confident, radiant, with a faint, mysterious half-smile that made Alex's breath catch. She was holding hands with a man, tall, imposing, in a flawless tuxedo. Alex recognized him instantly, Richard S. Crawford, his boss. They walked down together as a couple, and the guests applauded. Anne smiled at Crawford and he kissed her hand. Alex felt the world tilt. What? Raced through his mind. He was speechless. His throat tightened. Instinct pushed him forward, to take a step, approach, demand an explanation. But in the next second, Crawford, still holding Anne's hand, turned to the guests and spoke. "Dear friends, allow me to introduce my partner Anne Vance and announce our engagement." Alex stood paralyzed as if struck by lightning. Shock gripped him. The world narrowed down to this stage. Morgan squeezed his hand. "Alex, what is going on?" But he couldn't answer. All his plans, his confidence, his smugness, everything collapsed in an instant. The guests gave a standing ovation. The sound was deafening, like a tidal wave crashing over his head. Alex stood in the middle of the ballroom, unable to move. His hand was still gripping Morgan's elbow, but his fingers had gone numb. Engagement. The word echoed in his temples. Anne and Crawford. His Anne and his boss. Morgan pulled his sleeve. Her voice trembled. "Alex, is this a joke? Tell me this is a joke." He didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat spasmed. Fragments of memories raced through his mind like shards of a broken mirror. Anne, who for the last 6 months barely spoke to him in the evenings, just sitting with a book or her phone, looking right past him. Anne, who suddenly started going to an expensive fitness club 3 times a week and returned to her stylist after a 5-year hiatus. Anne, who stopped asking, "What time will you be home today?" He had rejoiced at the silence back then, thinking she had finally gotten used to it. He blamed it all on fatigue, on her age, on women's quirks, on a midlife crisis. Now, every one of those episodes flashed before his eyes with terrifying, chilling clarity, a puzzle he had put together himself, only upside down. Crawford raised his glass again. The light reflected in the crystal. His voice, amplified by the microphone, sounded warm and triumphant. "Anne walked into my life like a true miracle. She gave me what I hadn't dared to hope for in a long time. True intimacy, deep trust, and a future." He turned to her, looking as if no one else existed in the room. "That is why today, I want all of you to be witnesses. We are engaged, and in 3 months, we will be husband and wife." The room erupted in applause again. Someone cheered, someone whistled, Anne smiled that exact smile Alex once considered his personal property. Now she belonged to someone else. He took a step forward, then another. His legs moved on their own, like a sleepwalker. Morgan tried to hold him back, but he snatched his arm away. One thought pulsed in his head. Walk up there. Ask. Hear that it's a mistake, a setup, a prank. He almost reached the bottom of the stairs when his path was blocked by a tall figure in a dark blue suit. Victor Robbins, Crawford's right-hand man, the company's grey cardinal. A man feared even by those who feared no one. Alexander, Robbins said quietly, almost affectionately. Don't. Not here. Move, Alex croaked. Don't, Robbins repeated even quieter. You'll only make it worse for everyone, especially yourself. His gaze was calm, almost sympathetic. But behind that calm, Alex clearly saw steel. He knew Robbins never bluffed. At that moment, the orchestra started playing something slow and languid. Crawford led Anne to the center of the floor. They began to dance, beautifully, in perfect sync, as if they had rehearsed for months. Her dress flowed in silver waves. His hand rested on her waist so naturally, as if it had always belonged there. Alex felt something break inside him. Not rage. Rage would come later. Right now, there was only cold, sticky terror. He suddenly realized. This entire evening, his whole arrogant display with Morgan. It was child's play compared to what they had orchestrated. Morgan came up from behind, hugged his waist, pressing her belly against his back. Alex, we need to leave, please. He didn't answer. He watched Anne rest her head on Crawford's shoulder, watched him whisper something in her ear, watched her smile, quietly, happily. And then another person appeared in the ballroom, someone Alex never expected to see. His son, Max. 10 years old, in a tiny tuxedo, his hair neatly slicked back. He stood by a pillar next to a woman in her mid-40s, elegant, with a short haircut and a stern gaze. It was Eleanor Marks, Crawford's personal assistant of 15 years. Max was holding her hand, not clinging like a little kid, but holding it calmly, almost like an adult. And he was looking at Anne and Crawford dancing in the center of the room, without surprise, without tears, without the resentment Alex had feared and secretly hoped to see in his son's eyes. His look held something else, a tired, quiet, almost relieved acceptance. As if the boy had figured everything out a long time ago and was now just watching the puzzle pieces finally fall into place after being scattered for far too long. Alex felt the floor drop out from under him. Max noticed his father. Their eyes met across the massive ballroom, through hundreds of people, through camera flashes, through the music that kept playing as if nothing had happened. The boy didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't take a single step toward him. He just looked at him seriously and attentively. In those childish eyes, as green as Anne's, there was no anger, no plea. Then he turned away and pressed closer to Eleanor Marks. That finally broke Alex completely. He turned around and practically ran toward the exit. Morgan could barely keep up. The lobby was colder, quieter. The smell of perfume and champagne was replaced by the scent of freshly cut flowers. A light draft blew from the front doors. Alex ripped his coat check ticket, grabbed his black cashmere coat without even waiting for the attendant, who was already hurrying over with a polite smile. The coat fell heavy on his shoulders, like it belonged to someone else. The freezing air hit them outside. Alex took a deep breath and felt nothing, just a void in his chest. Marcus, his silent, broad-shouldered driver who had been with him for 4 years, stood by the black Cadillac Escalade with the hazard lights blinking. Seeing his client, he silently opened the back door. No questions asked. Morgan climbed inside, sobbing quietly, almost soundlessly. "What happens now?" she finally asked, when the car was already on the highway. Her voice shook. Alex stayed silent, staring into the dark, tinted glass, which reflected his own face. Unfamiliar, having aged years in a single night. "I thought—" He began in his head, and stopped. What did he think? That impunity was a privilege? That he could have it all at once? The career, the family, the mistress, the child on the side? That Anne would never dare? That she would wait for him forever, like a loyal dog? He was wrong. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from an unknown number. "The papers have already been handed over to your lawyer. Uncontested divorce. No property disputes or public hearings. Custody. Formally joint, but Max's primary residence is with his mother. The Park Avenue apartment is yours. Equity in the projects and your job at the company. Open for discussion. Depends entirely on your behavior over the next 2 weeks. Don't do anything stupid. R.C." The signature was short, but clear. Richard Crawford. Alex closed his eyes. Ahead of him wasn't just a divorce and a scandal. Ahead of him was a war, and he had already lost the first battle before he even realized it had begun. The SUV sped down the dark Connecticut highway. The headlights caught the bare trunks of pine trees and tall fences in the dark. Over the roar of the engine, only one phrase spun in Alex's head. The exact phrase he had once jokingly said to Anne as they lay on the couch after dinner, hugging her waist. "You'd be lost without me." Now he knew for sure. He was the one who was lost. The car stopped smoothly outside the Park Avenue building at 2:30 a.m. Marcus got out first, walked around the vehicle, and opened the rear door, still in silence, without a single wasted movement. Alex stepped out. His legs felt like lead. He didn't say goodbye, just slammed the door shut. Morgan remained in the back seat. She wasn't crying out loud, just breathing quietly, jaggedly, staring blankly ahead. Marcus looked at Alex questioningly through the glass. Alex shook his head. The car slowly pulled away, its red taillights dissolving into the dark. The elevator doors closed with a soft click. The mirror in the cab reflected a man he didn't recognize. Pale, temples wet with sweat, eyes stripped of their victorious spark. Only emptiness and confusion remained. The penthouse greeted him with silence. No sound of Max's footsteps. No smell of the dinner Anne usually left under a lid. No familiar glow of the nightlight in the kids' room. Everything was in its place, yet everything was gone. On the kitchen island lay a lone white envelope. Unsigned. Alex recognized his wife's handwriting at first glance. Neat, tilting slightly to the right. He tore the paper open. "Alex, I waited a long time for you to notice it yourself, but you only ever noticed yourself. Max has been living with Eleanor on weekdays for a month now. She became a second mother to him while I tried to put myself back together. On weekends, he is with me. Or rather, he was with me, until I realized I could give him more than you and I combined. The divorce papers were filed yesterday. Crawford's lawyers handled everything. I don't want alimony or property division. I want nothing from you. Only one thing. Do not try to get Max back through the courts. He chose who he feels safer with himself. Don't make him say it out loud. Goodbye, Anne." He read it 3 times. Then he sat right on the kitchen floor, his back against the fridge. His phone buzzed. Another text, this time from Morgan. "I'm at my mum's place in New Jersey. Don't call today. I'm scared." He didn't reply. He had no strength. Later, he slowly made his way to the couch and lay down. He woke up in the exact same spot the next morning. His neck was stiff, and he tasted metal in his mouth. The first thing he did was open his laptop and log into his corporate email. An email from the company's HR director sat at the top of the inbox, flagged red for urgency. Dear Alexander, due to the reorganization of the sales department and the transition to a new management structure effective February 10th of this year, your position as head of sales is being eliminated. You are being offered the position of senior account manager. Compensation level: 60% of your current base salary. Alternatively, a severance package upon mutual termination equal to 9 months' salary. Please communicate your decision by 5 p.m. Monday. Best regards, Emily Cole, HR Director. 9 months' salary for 10 years of work, for all the shattered quotas, the nights in airports, the clients he pulled out of debt and bankruptcy. 9 months' salary and goodbye. He closed the laptop, stood up, and went to the cabinet where they kept important documents. He pulled out a folder labelled Family. Inside were their marriage certificate, Max's birth certificate, photos from the wedding, from Max's first day of school, from their trip to the Hamptons 5 years ago. In one of the pictures, Anne was laughing, her arms wrapped around his neck, while a little Max hung on his back like a backpack. He stared at the photo for a long time, then carefully put all the papers back and locked the folder in the safe, as if that could save anything. That afternoon, he got a call from his lawyer, a young, arrogant guy recommended by a colleague. Alexander, the situation is far from simple. Your wife filed for an uncontested divorce, but added a stipulation granting the mother primary residence of the child. Crawford provided her with top-tier legal backing. We have a chance to fight for joint custody, but... He paused. It will be expensive and loud. The press, the courts, public hearings. Are you prepared for Max to be put on the stand and asked who he wants to live with? Alex stayed silent. I get it. The lawyer continued more softly. But if you want a real shot, you need to start gathering evidence that you were involved in his upbringing, that you provided, that you were there. Diaries, messages, witnesses. Alex remembered how, over the last 2 years, Max would ask, Dad, are you coming home for dinner tonight? And he would answer, Probably not, buddy. Important meeting. And how Anne had said, He doesn't ask anymore. He just expects you not to show up. No, he finally replied. There are almost no witnesses. The lawyer sighed. Then I'd advise against a war. Save face, save your money, and try to rebuild a relationship with your son later when the dust settles. Alex hung up. That evening, he drove to New Jersey to see Morgan's mother. She opened the door with a stone-cold expression. She's sleeping. Don't wake her. I just want to see her. You can see her tomorrow, if she wants you to. Morgan came out anyway, wearing an old sweater, her eyes bloodshot. Did you know? She asked instead of saying hello. Know what? That Anne and Crawford have been... He shook his head. I thought you were just playing the big shot, but it turns out... She stumbled. It turns out we were both just props. You for him and me for you. Alex wanted to argue, but the words got stuck in his throat. I'll have the baby, Alex, and I'll raise him alone if I have to. But I don't want my son growing up next to a man who thinks the world revolves around him. She closed the door quietly, without slamming it. He stood on the porch for another 10 minutes, then walked down to his SUV. He didn't know where to go. He just drove down the turnpike until he was almost out of gas. Standing by the pump at the gas station, he suddenly realized one simple truth. All this time, he thought he was winning, but in reality, he was just walking further and further away from the people who loved him. And now, there was nowhere left to return to. A month passed. February was brutally cold, and New York seemed to freeze over specifically to spite him. Alex lived in the same Park Avenue penthouse, but now it felt like an expensive mausoleum. Everything was in its place, but there was no life left in it. He took the 9-month severance, rejected the humiliating senior manager role, and left Tech Empire quietly, with no scandal or farewell party. Industry rumors were already swirling. Vance got tossed out. Crawford personally signed off on it. Word is it was over a woman. He didn't deny it. There was no point. Morgan delivered on time. She named her son Daniel, after her father, whom Alex never liked. He came to the hospital the next day with a massive bouquet and an envelope of cash. She took the flowers. The envelope she left on the nightstand. "I'm filing for child support officially," she said calmly. "Keep things clean? You can see him whenever you want, but he lives with me." He nodded, asked if he could hold him. He held him. A tiny fist gripped his finger with surprising strength. Alex cried silently for the first time in many years, trying not to wake his son. Then he left and never came back. He and Anne only met once during that time, at the lawyer's office to sign the settlement agreement. She showed up in a simple grey coat, wearing no rings. Crawford had given her a new 6-carat diamond. Everyone knew that by now. He tried to catch her eye at least once. She only looked at the papers. "How is Max?" he asked hoarsely. "Good. He's doing well at his new private school. Tennis, piano, a native English tutor. He's happy." "Does he ask about me?" She paused, then looked up. There was no anger or pity in her eyes, only exhaustion. He said, "Dad will come visit when he can now, not when he wants to." Those are his words, Alex, not mine. Signature? Stamp. Done. Crawford married Anne in April. A quiet ceremony in Italy, at a villa on Lake Como. Photos leaked to social media. She wore a simple white dress. He wore a linen suit. Max stood in the middle, holding both of their hands. The caption, "We are finally a real family." Hundreds of thousands of likes. Alex stared at that photo late at night with a bottle of scotch and, for the first time in his life, understood what it meant for a heart to physically ache. He zoomed in to see his son's eyes. Max was smiling, genuinely, not for the camera. In May, he got a call from Victor Robbins, the very man who stopped him at the ball. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. sharp. The Polo Bar in Midtown." Alex went. Robbins was in an excellent mood. "Richard sends his regards, and an offer." "What kind of offer?" Alex chuckled bitterly. "Did he send a housewarming card?" "No, a job in Dubai. Launching a new fund. You'll run the American Capital Division. Extremely broad authority. Salary is triple what you were making, plus equity options, plus full corporate relocation. Housing, private school for the kid if you bring him and Morgan with you." Alex remained silent. "This isn't pity, if that's what you're thinking." Robbins continued. "It's business. You're a talented executive no matter how you spin it, Vance. You just spent way too long thinking talent gave you the right to be a scumbag. Richard decided to give you a second chance, but on his terms. And far away from New York, so paths don't cross. So everyone can move on with their lives." "And Anne?" Alex asked quietly. Robbins shrugged. "Anne is Mrs. Crawford now, and she is happy." A pause hung in the air. "I'll think about it," Alex said. "Think fast. The flight leaves May 30th. He took the flight. Dubai was scorching. The desert was filled with a sense of freedom and endless space. He rented a seaside villa, bought new workout gear, and started running in the mornings. A year later, his fund posted the best returns in the region. Crawford sent a short text. "Good work." Max flew in for the holidays. At first with Eleanor Marks, later by himself. They rode camels, went scuba diving, and sat in silence on the balcony in the evenings. One day his son asked, "Dad, do you regret it?" Alex stared at the lights of Dubai for a long time. "I regret that I didn't regret it sooner," he replied. "That's the worst part." Morgan married a Swiss banker and moved to Zurich. Little Daniel called his new dad Papa Mark. Alex saw them once a year on his son's birthday, brought whatever presents the boy asked for, and left before it started to hurt too much. He saw Anne one more time by chance at the Zurich airport, 8 years later. She was walking with her daughter, a little carbon copy of herself, about 5 years old. Crawford was carrying the bags. They bumped into each other near the gate. A second passed. Then 2. She smiled calmly, without a shadow of the past. "Hi, Alex." "Hi, Anne." The little girl pulled her hand. "Mommy, we're going to miss our flight." Anne bent down and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Let's go, sunshine." And she walked away. He stood and watched them leave until they disappeared into the crowd. That evening, he just sat on the balcony of his villa in Dubai, looking out over the Persian Gulf, and thought, "This is it. A king without a crown, but back in the game." And maybe that was already more than he deserved. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories.